In live if it's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're here every day of the week. Really have been encouraged and gratified by the strong participation, interactions, new members. I mean, this is really something special. So with that said, today's topic is Rise Up. Makes so much sense for so many reasons. And, I'm so fortunate and honored on many occasions, but especially this one, to have Charles Caldwell with us and Kelle, our anchor here, and would love to hear what you have to say about the topic, about anything that's relevant and important to you that you would like to share with others, and hopefully get some really great takeaways. Like I say, chat's open. We depend on you for direction. And with that said, I'll turn it over to Kelle, and Kelle can give you a quick update on what she's thinking and about the topic today, and about what's been happening with the show.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, I mean, it couldn't be a more perfect topic. Rise up, he is risen. So I think it's wonderful that you made it to be that topic on this Easter Sunday. So happy Easter to all of those out there. And for me, and just to kind of go off of how live this is, I literally had no sound until 2 seconds before we went live. So I'm out at my folks' house. So I'm in their office. So I've got a little bit of a different setup. So a couple little hiccups, but here we are, and it worked nonetheless. And I'm so grateful to be here with all of you. And I was really excited to know that Charles was going to be joining us this morning as well, because I would love to hear what you have to say, because I know you do so many things beyond here that I think most don't probably know about even. So I would love to know your thoughts for today, Charles.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kelle. I think that I love the idea of rising up. I think that that's something that we're called to do to reach our full potential or continue to grow our potential, is just to really rise up over our circumstances and continue to grow and develop ourselves. So I'm really excited about what today will bring for us. And just a little bit of quick background on myself. I run Human Resources for English Schools Foundation in Hong Kong. We run 22 schools here from kindergarten to secondary school. We've got about 19,000 students and 3,000 staff. And on the side, I also do coaching and poor leadership. That's kind of my mantra, is to pour leadership. My ceiling is the next generation's floor.
That's great. The beauty of having Kelle and Charles on is who they are and what you're going to receive. It's consistent, great value, sincere desire to help others. And the topic today is so apropos because everything is about elevating, right? Taking the next step, and rising up really starts with standing up. Right? I mean, to get up and to stand for something and then to climb for something. I mean, it is so aspirational in so many wonderful ways because you can, right? To Charles's point, everybody is their own ceiling, and that could be the floor to future benefit. And this group, I'm so appreciative of so much support, so much outreach, so much wonderful positive input. So with that said, let's recognize the most important people here, which is the audience. Christy's here. Happy Easter to everyone. This is really going to be a great show, because if people can encourage others and themselves to take that step they know they can and deserve to take, but do it a little sooner, it'll be a lot more fun for you and also to share with others. Charles is welcoming everybody in person and on comments. We've got Mike, who's been a regular. Hello, Kelle, Charles, and Don. Your consistency, dedication, and passion are inspiring. I believe everything is modeling, right, or mirroring. Dean's here. Dean's just a wonderful gentleman. And with that, Kelle, what do you think about the response from the audience and how we're building on this?
Well, I mean, it's so great to have everybody here this morning, especially I know this is a family weekend for so many and a family day. So thank you for taking the time to be here for one. But the one thing that one of my favorite Charles sayings is, "My ceiling is your floor." And I love that you just said that. And that is so about, the rise up. We rise by lifting others. And I think that is just a true thing. I know it works for me. This fulfills me in so many different ways, and just to be able to be here and give any kind of inspiration to anybody. We all talk about this all the time. If it's one person that it makes a difference, then day over. And to be able to do it on this platform with such amazing people is just such a gift. I mean, it really is, and such a blessing. So I'm just grateful to be able to be here and be part of this and rise up with this community. I mean, it is just truly a blessing. What are your thoughts, Charles?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I think it is an amazing blessing, and I also wish everybody a happy Easter. And we might find that our crowds are a bit lower today because people might actually be off at church. That's always a possibility. We had an overwhelming number of people at church today, a lot of new faces, which was great to see. We're actually in the process of building a massive new church. We're going to be moving into it in the next 4 to 6 months. But in terms of rising up, I think that rising up really means to take action, make positive changes in one's life. It can often refer to overcoming personal obstacles, overcoming fears, doubts, negative beliefs that you might have, and then really moving forward with a renewed sense of purpose and confidence. And I think it also conjures up images of empowerment and determination, suggests that people are taking control of their life and really actively seeking out how they're going to rise up over their circumstances. And this might involve goals and developing new schools. Leveling up is another expression that's become common. Level up during the pandemic. Don't sit around doing nothing. Go out and do some LinkedIn courses or something else to build your skills. So overall, I think it's a really powerful phrase. It really encourages people to take charge of themselves, their life, their personal growth and development, and really strive towards their full potential.
Yeah, that's great because, when you look at rising up, you're also looking at stretching up, right? So, and when you stretch, you really get to expand your capabilities and your new frontiers, and it's really the adventure of moving to another level, because when you move to another level, naturally, by definition, it's a new level, right? If we're in a department store and you went to level 4, it would be completely probably different than level 3. And it's really the search to see how many levels you can reach. And it's not really success levels, it's personal fulfillment levels. Sometimes it leads to success, sometimes it leads to material benefit, but in most cases it leads to pride, knowing you can do more than you have done. It's always nice to know you got a reserve, right? It's nice to know you got more gas in the tank, more money in the bank, and that you can do more when you need to and be happy doing more. And actually, at a certain point, once you stretch your rising up muscles, you look for opportunities to help you stretch, right? To fill the capacity now. And it's a whole different ball game when you're on the other side and you're not worried about things that you're used to, and now you can really focus. And I think focus is going to naturally be a word down the week somewhere that we'll use. But what I love about these words is they have so many meanings to so many people, which means they're so universal, right? And at that point, to Kelly's point, if everybody tries to take a little bit away, comes here with the intent of bringing home a trophy. It could be a connection, it could be a thought, it could be an action, it could be just something that says I'm better than I give myself credit for. And I think everybody should rise up to their highest value and potential. And until someone applauds you, you should applaud yourself. Get prepared for all the adulation and respect and admiration you'll be gaining. And what do you think about Kelly?
I mean, all of that is so great, and you're right. One of the things that I found very interesting about all the topics that we've been doing of late is they have multi interpretations. Like it's not just one, and the beauty of that is it's showing everyone that not everyone's one view is. We're not closed to that one thing. It opens our minds, and I think on a show earlier this week, I'd made a comment about that. What one of the other things I love about here is that, and that it opens our minds to like, wow, I never even thought about that topic in that way before. This is so cool. Um, so I think that's another awesome thing that's been happening, and seeing how that is, expanding people and allowing them to grow. But I also think it's something that brings people back going, wow, I didn't think about it that way. I want to go and find something else out, and see what I can learn. And I love seeing that people are like, I always find a takeaway. There's something that I take away. On a Friday show, as an example, I haven't seen JD's from yesterday. I do have it on my list for to watch the replay. But Friday, when you were on with Christy and Lachelle, I mean, oh my gosh, there was so many. And I even enjoyed watching Lachelle take so many notes of like, she was like, oh, this is another takeaway. This is another takeaway. And and I think for anyone that's so fulfilling, right? Is to know that, wow, I just said something that someone found um, that captured them enough in a way that they wanted to write it down and remember it, and or share it with someone else. And Don, you're great at doing that because you have so many great stories, analogies, etc. Charles, the same, sharing his quotes. But I think that's another part of the beauty here is people have something to take away that changes maybe how they viewed something before they arrived, or it just helps them see things a little bit differently, because we can. And I think especially the way that the world is right now, we get locked so into our own things that sometimes we do forget to take a step back and go, hey, I need to refocus on what's going on in a different light, not just in my light, because that can definitely help change our own perception of our situations. I mean, how many times, especially on this show, do we hear a story and we end up going, wow, I don't have it so bad, or wow, I'm so amazingly inspired, that I don't want to focus on the negative anymore. I want to focus on the positive because I can make a change. It's all about my mindset. And these are people I can truly reach out to. That's another thing that I think has been so cool to see is people are like, wow, you guys are actually, you are actually I can actually connect with you in person, meaning offline, usually on video. Um, but knowing that like this isn't just a show, it is people who are sharing and are willing to share themselves with others, because we're all looking for connection too. I mean, that's what we started this whole journey for here. What are your thoughts, Charles?
I think you're absolutely right. It's critical that people stay positive, and probably the first spark of ignition of rising up comes from people shifting from a darker place to a more positive place. And I really want to affirm people who are listening to this live session that they're not an option or a choice for a soft place to land after a long battle or after difficult circumstances. If people are listening and really want you to understand, you are meant to be the one to rise up in your life. You are meant to be the one. And if you can wrap yourself around the idea that you are something incredible, then you'll stop allowing those kind of soul-crushing events to take hold of your life, and really be able to not only love other people but also love yourself. And it's just really need to get our minds around this crazy idea of rising up and looking at our futures completely differently and completely creatively. I was coaching an individual a couple months ago, and they were really, really, really absorbed in their career and in their job. And they got to a point where they had lost touch with the things in their life that they were really passionate about that were completely outside of their career. And one of them was their passion for animals. And they were still going through the motions of looking after dogs, which they particularly loved, but they had sort of lost touch with the passion that really ignited them to love animals and love dogs so much. And through this coaching session, we were able to actually shift the individual's perspective and they came off the call at the end really ignited and lit up and re-energized because they had shifted the lens from a darker place to a more positive place. And that's really the opportunity when we rise up, is to give ourselves permission to affirm ourselves, know that we are great, know that good things are ahead, and then rise up over our circumstances to make those good things that are ahead come to life. Back to you, Don.
That's so profound. I mean, I could listen to that all hour and it'd be a wonderful hour. And, I think another way of visualizing, and I think that's what we try to do when we pick up a subject or a word, is to rise up with on top of someone's shoulders, right? I mean, that's another way of getting stronger, getting taller, because everybody who opened a road for us made it easy for us to go through it, right? So in essence, we're all grateful and should be appreciative of those people who made things happen for us that may not have been able to experience it themselves. And I think that's why you being the shoulders for other people is important, and I always am impressed with Charles's sayings, and I love sayings naturally. And I just reflect on a time, when the pandemic started, it really affected young kids really hard, and I still have grandchildren, but they were 7 and 9 at the time, and they had to stay home for a whole year. Really affected them negatively. And what I started doing every morning when I woke up is I sent each one of them a different quote. And I did it for about 40 days and they loved it, right? It was, just something that you'd go to Google and say top quotes or something. And then my grandson, who was 7, sent me back a quote from Steve Jobs about something.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, boy, it came full circle. It took me 6 weeks of sending it to them, and they'd receive it and say something. But it was just building a fire for someone else who is in need of warmth. It's too much to tell somebody or ask somebody to do something. Why not show them and do it for them, with them, and get them into the habit of enjoying it? Because if you're really committed, you're there to long term, right? And you're willing to put the time in, and that's what we're doing with this show. This is really a humanity opportunity, right? Where people can be better for themselves, for the people around them, and for people they'll never meet. See, the beauty of this is once it goes out, you don't know where it's going. You don't know who is listening. And I always thank people who come on the show, and I said, we brought so much value to so many people today, but more importantly, we're going to bring so much value to people we'll never get to know or meet, and when you continue on and your value continues to move into the most wonderful places with the most wonderful people, in a sense, we're an agent of change for agents of change. Right? Because I could see this message coming into societies and countries that aren't as open and free as other countries, but people, again, peer to peer, can send this message that no one will have a problem with, to empower people. So Kelle, isn't this just unbelievable?
Yes. And one of the things that so sticks out with me, what you just said, one is taking the time to send your grandchildren quotes every day. Again, you're showing, you're doing the action. You're doing something to help them rise up, knowing that it was a rough time. But those are the things that when they grow and, it's just a reality, and you're gone and they're grandparents themselves, they're going to remember that. I mean, that's like a life memory that will always go on with them, to be like, God, it was so great because my grandpa took the time to write me these quotes, and they were so meaningful, and these were the ones. And like you said, to see it come back around and have your grandson write one back to you, I mean, stop. I mean, that is so beautiful. But I think that's the bigger point in all of that is what you said about, it's all about action. People knowing that other people are down, do something. I mean, and that is why I say, when people complain about what's going on in the world, well, what are you doing to help it? I mean, you do have the power to make a change in your own circumstance, whatever that looks like for you. And it can be, and I don't want to say that it's small because I do think small things can be so big and so powerful. You taking the time, which how long did it take you to send a quote to your grandkids?
Minute,
Right.
just
And
copy and paste.
and that changed how they feel about things in so many ways that we can't even measure. And it's like we all have the power to do that, not even just within ourselves, but with others. And we talk about that here a lot also is just the way that we all feel when we leave. It's that ripple effect. Take it out into the world and go share it with someone. Um, I was at a community sale with my mom yesterday. She lives in a very large retirement community out here in Arizona. And there's just something I feel that's different since 2020 when you're out and about anymore. People feel more polite and engaging and friendly. Now, granted, there's always the grumpers. I mean, because it just happens. But I feel like people really want that. They're just hungry for the human connection. And, I, of course, love seeing anyone who seems grumpy and to go say something to them. And it always turns the tables. And it's like, I feel better because I know someone maybe that wasn't feeling so great. At least they left smiling. And then that's what you were doing with your grandkids. And those are things when people are like, I don't know what I can do to make a difference in this world. There's too many things that are so broken and so screwed up. And it's like, well, don't take the whole thing on. Just do it. And we do these seemingly small things that ripple into such a bigger, more powerful message. And also to go on your thing, Don, is this message is global. I mean, everybody needs community support and love. I mean, we say that all the time. And I do think that's why it does attract people from all over because we're not just, it's universal. Those are just things we all need as humans because we're taking out all those other things and just making it about us as individuals, not as what is your job title? What do you do? Who do you know? What can you do for me? What can you buy from me? We've removed all of that. And I love that. I mean, that just makes me feel proud, honored, and it has helped make me rise up because being here has been definitely a part that has helped me, I think, live more in my purpose and see what that is. So I mean, it's just so lovely. And to be on Easter Sunday, I mean, I can't, it goes to that whole thing. It's a big, giant virtual hug. Like, I just feel just so honored. And I love all the stories, the shares, and the advice of small things that we can all do that I feel make big impacts in this world. So what do you think, Charles?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that post-pandemic, people are craving for human connection. I think that going through the circumstance of the pandemic had people appreciate the value of relationships in their life in a really transformational way. People are, the whole issue around the Great Resignation and people wanting their commute back. People realized that when they work from home, they actually are not traveling 30, 45, 60, even more minutes per day, twice a day to work. And that actually, if they work from home, they're going to get an hour or 2 hours back into their life. And what they get for that is time with their family, time with their friends, time with their neighbors, time with really the important people in their life. And so you really see this, more than anything, materially, the pandemic has impacted that craving for human connections. And that's just an amazing phenomenon to watch. And the one thing that stops people from rising up is they get paralyzed by the fear or the anxiousness or the stress of their life. And you really want to, one of the ways you can look at that is do not come into agreement with fear and stress and distress or stress in your life. You really need to activate the passion within you and really live in victory and speak life into your world and expect great things to come. It's just really, really, that's one of the ways that you can create a really powerful mindset. And one of the things to remember is that the most powerful and the most valuable lessons in life don't come from walking or running. They actually come from when you fall down. They come from the circumstances that haven't worked out for us, and the failures that we've had, and that makes us able to rise up and overcome those particular failures. I really switch into the spiritual for a moment. I really believe, and I delivered a sermon on this back in, I guess it was February. I really believe that for those who believe in a higher power, I believe that God is calling us to rise up over the pandemic and rise up over the circumstances in our world, rise up over the environment, and to rise up over, leaders that we've talked about who are toxic over the last several weeks, and just to really rise up over that and speak positivity and speak a future into the planet, speak a future into the world, speak a future into your world, and really change the place, change the planet for a better place. And to your point, Kelle, about, the world's so big, how do I make a difference? Well, you can start by making a difference with you. It starts inside your heart,
Yep.
and from inside your heart, you look at your first circle of friendships and relationships, and that's most likely going to be your family. And I love Mother Teresa's quote, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. Back to you, Don.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, I think that's so well put. And I believe that as you listen to what Kelle and Charles are saying, it's a necessity for people to fortify themselves and nourish themselves through human connection. But so many people are beat down that rising up is not even in their vocabulary. But what it really is a commitment to yourself to do something every day, to learn something, to be a little bit better in one area, even find a spot that you need to clean today, and it's just one spot. But if you do it, you'll have knocked it off your list. You'll feel you accomplished something. And after listening to Charles and Kelle and going back to that, sending someone a saying every day, when I look back at it, it wasn't even my saying. But it was an important saying that was relevant, I think, to them that day. And it was Mark Twain, or it was you name the person. So in essence, what I'm saying, it took me about 20 seconds to find it, cut it, and paste it. And the whole exercise for 2 grandchildren took about a minute and a half. And if someone says, do you got a minute and a half to help 2 people who are new to what they're into, which everybody is new to whatever they're into, because it's the first time they're living this day. It's the first time they're carrying yesterday into tomorrow. And you want to be happy every day. That should be the goal. And if you can be happy, you can make other people happy. And you need to be the instrument of ignition. Of here's a saying, because once you say a saying and people read it, you can't unread it. Right? You just saw it. It's in your mind, what you do with it, how it affects you. But over time, if you get one every day, there's going to be something that shows up and says, wow, this, you meet a person, you hear someone on TV, whatever. And the other thing is that the audience has to understand they're bigger and more important than the people talking to them.
Yeah.
Right? Too many people tie into the news, and they're hearing all this commentation and all of these insights, and the news hasn't changed, right? If a train has a crash, that's what it was. 20 hours of people telling you about it, who's responsible, all this stuff. It's mind shrinking. And I think rising up is to expand your mind with people who nourish it. Right? You wouldn't keep paying for a meal that you left hungry or sick about, right? You would immediately change, because the circumstance is not a person, right? When it's a thing, it's so easy to walk away from, to move to a different restaurant. When it's a person, that's different. But in a sense, it may be the thing that's holding you back from rising up. Yeah. You may have the ability, the desire, but not the circumstances or environment that encourages it. So, Kelle, let's actually recognize a lot of these wonderful people.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be fair. Wow, we got a lot. So I'll just go through it. Christy's here. Naturally, Charles is here. Mike has been a regular. Mike continues to contribute and support, which is great. It's all one team. Dean's here. We've got a new Hassan. Thank you so much. Thank you for the wonderful wish. Bob Marley, Three Little Birds, and I guess we're going to see the lyrics. Hey, Don, Kelly, and Charles, happy Easter Sunday to everybody. Mike is, yeah, here it is, Three Little Birds. Great song if you've never heard it. So, it's got the link in there. Paul is one of my favorite songs, Rise Up by Andra Day. It's kind of funny because Mike says Rise Up, and all of a sudden Paul figures out another song that related to it. And it shows you how one thought or conversation leads to another thought and possible conversation. Dan is, Charles, what's your phrase about ceiling? And Charles will show that soon. Little minds are tamed and subdued by misfortune, but great minds rise above them. Washington Irving, great saying. Paul, you must go to your depths to shatter your ceilings. At a certain point, it's whatever it takes. I've been in so many situations where I didn't want to get into it, didn't want to do it, but I know I had to. You know, and I just had to make it a deal with myself to say, what are you willing to do? Whatever it takes, for as long as it takes, that's what I'm in for. And there were so many times when I had to deal with unpleasant situations that personally I didn't find aligned at all, but I knew it was required and necessary for it to come to fruition what was necessary. And I think that's where you draw a line in the sand and you say to yourself, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the people that put you in a position to take advantage of opportunities that you have inside of yourself. And when the outside gets too bad, the inside can get a lot better, right? So don't depend on what's outside to make you whole, go inside. Let me just finish with this. We've got Nicole, who's here almost every day. I was impressed that Nicole wrote a best-selling book, and I've talked to Nicole, and she has an unbelievable story. And I'm planning on having Nicole on. I mean, just this week, I've had 3 more people that I've talked to. They're brand new, and almost everybody I talk to has a great story and needs to be heard, So that's coming up. Okay, we talked about my ceiling is next generation floor. Andrea's here. Always grateful for Andrea. She's here on Tuesdays. Nicole, happy Easter, Ramadan, Passover. Not sure all the holidays today, so just happy Sunday too. And you can extend holidays.
Yeah.
If you're having a good time, give it another day. Don't have to top it off at midnight. Whatever makes you feel good and better for being part of it or with somebody, that's what you should continue to explore. Follow your heart. It'll never lead you wrong. Paul, good morning, Nicole. Have a great Sunday. And there's so many other little bigger circles that are being developed through these communities, that people are aligning. It was actually John Deverendine, but yeah, Sunshine on the Makes Me Happy is a beautiful song. It's actually one of the reasons I was attracted to Colorado was when John Denver, in the 70s was singing all that. Good morning on special day. That's Ice. I'll never forget the nickname that you allowed me to do. Dan's here. Dan's a great guy. Happy Easter, everyone. Good morning. We've got Ice here. Speaking into the world is powerful. Words are powerful to keep us optimistic. So true. And, everybody has the wealth of words to share. So when you have nothing more than that, even a kind word goes a long way to anybody in need of that. I would add to that, Charles, you don't have to make the mistakes. There's so much value in observing. One of my favorite sayings is pay attention or you'll pay for it. And I think that's reframing your mind to think in ways that are more practical and beneficial to you. Wow, Charles, you're really off the chain today. Bravo.
I love it.
On this show. That's the beauty of life, right?
Yeah.
That would never happen without encouragement.
That's right.
Charles Caldwell, sir. We have the power to rise up and be in the word and of faith overseeing the negative. You can always find a positive and a negative, usually when you have gone through it, if you live in your heart. Life is what you make it, And you can be happy, you can be sad. It's all your determination. Morning, Paul. Modern financial advice. Paul. When I started speaking, I saw a lot of people speaking loud, and my mentor told me, raise your commitment, message, and actions instead of your voice. Yes. So true. You know, it's everybody just has to put things in a little different order. You know, just have to keep adjusting to their situations. Good morning, Charles. So good you guys took time out of your Easter Sunday to be with us. Well, you know, Kelly mentioned it a little bit earlier. This is my family. You know, I'm not leaving a family to be here. I'm being here for the family, you know, and this is the family that nourishes me and fortifies me. And it doesn't compete with my biological family or my chosen family. It complements it, you know, because whatever I am or whatever I become from this, I take it to them. And I share some of these ideas that aren't typically original. What's your thoughts, Kelly?
I mean, yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, it is, I love sharing this with people. I mean, I get asked all the time now about it, and people who have come to see it. And my mom, she's like, I'm going to make her a LinkedIn profile just because she wants to be able to look. And I do have to say, just so people do know, it is a family. Like, I've met Dawn's wife, Anne, and Dawn has also met my mom last week when she came over to my place after our Thursday live, I believe it was, or Wednesday, whichever day. So we do share a lot of things, and it is, I mean, this is such a foundation now of my day, not just for being on this side of it, being on, you know, the other side as well. When I'm not sitting here on the camera portion of it, I'm on the other side, either watching or listening. Because if I can't watch, I'm 90% of the time I am listening. But and like days like yesterday, a perfect example. When I'm with my family or my friends, I make it a point to be present. That is one gift that I think that is immeasurable for anyone. And I've always felt that way, but I do think, to go back to sort of what Charles was saying earlier about 2020, it made me feel a lot different about it now. I am so present when I'm with my family. The phone is away. And granted, it's always been that way in my mom and stepdad's household. You know, your phones are down because you're here and we're spending time as a family together. But it's even more so now when I'm with friends, when I'm with people. Be present with them. There is nothing more, the connection that you get with that, and we all notice it. Like, let's be honest, when we go to meetings or meet with people, you notice when somebody puts their phone away, or if they're on the phone constantly, and it's like, God, this is so annoying. Why am I even here? And why did I waste my time driving to this restaurant or to this office so I could sit and watch you be on your phone? I just think there's something so important about that. And those are, you know, things. And then too, I think because my mom and stepdad are getting older, you know, I'm blessed that they're both in amazing shape, and healthy. But I know that there's going to be times. I lost someone early in life. I mean, he should have lived much longer, about a year and a half ago. And it was one of those things that just made me be like, he would irritate me with certain things, but I was like, there's going to come a time I'm going to wish that he would irritate me one more time. And it's true, because you can't undo those things. And even if I've heard a story that has been said 100 times, I now sit in a place where I'm like, there's going to come a time where I want to hear it the 101st time, and I'm not going to be able to. So I just think the gift of being present, and that also, to the other side of that, earlier what we were saying about giving back, it's not a secret that I'm a mentor, and I have not just to business people, but to also at-risk youth. And that's what makes the whole difference, is I can't fix what's gone on in that child's life. I can't undo it. It's happened, and it's terrible, and no human should ever go through it. But what I can do for that child is just be there, be present, and love them. And even as a 16-year-old will say, like, I've never had a good relationship with adults because adults have not treated her well at all. And she goes, but you give me hope that there is something for me in the future. And those are the things, by I think being here, being present, sharing stories, bringing other people, and being there for one another is what we all need. Is sometimes we just need a little bit of hope to know that, hey, there is someone there that still cares and wants to do something to help me. It's not about, what can you do for us? We're not sitting up here because we're trying to sell you anything or trying to gain anything, or even speak to you or at you in the sense of, this is what you should think, this is how you should feel. We're just sharing our thoughts and our feelings, and how we see, things coming together, and sharing our life experiences, day to day and big life experience stuff. So I'm going to go back to the whole, it's just such a blessing. And I feel so grateful to be able to be here. And yes, it is a holiday, but this is part of my holiday celebration for me. What do you think, Charles?
Yeah, I think that people should never underestimate the impact that they have on others. Really, if you ever find yourself, being lazy, dare to fire back with that spirit of enthusiasm and rise up at the same place, over top of the circumstances. The example of putting your phones down is such a simple example, and the example of um, Don sending quotes to his grandkids is a simple example, but it makes a difference. Everywhere we go in life, we are modeling leadership behavior, and in the case of Don's grandkids, they actually modeled it back.
Yes.
So there's like really testimony to the power that we have to pour leadership into other people's worlds. And I would encourage people. In fact, I would have it be a call to action for people to really look into your life and identify people who may have slipped off the radar just a little bit, or might be feeling a little bit low. There's shade being cast on their life for whatever reason. And you have an opportunity to reach out to that person and to touch them and send them your own equivalent of putting the phones down when you're at the dinner table or when you're having a coffee together, and sending a quote to them. Whatever it is for you in your life, you have the opportunity to send that message to another person.
Mhm.
And everybody wants to leave their mark on this world. They want to leave their signature. They want to really make a difference with what they touch in this world. And it's not the voice of ego, the human spirit rising up and really declaring that you have something to contribute to people who are going through difficult circumstances, no matter how difficult they might be. So I really, really encourage people, look into your life and identify those people that might have slipped off the radar, or they're living in the shade somewhere, and you have the ability to just very gently, easily reach out and touch them and make a difference in their world. And that's my call to action for people today.
I love it. I love it. And I think earlier this week I saw somewhere, so this goes on that too, is if you've thought of an old friend, a family member that you haven't thought about in a while, if they came to mind for whatever reason, reach out to them. I mean, this goes on to what you're saying. And it doesn't need to be a holiday. I think it's so important. And like you said, I mean, perfect example of Don's quotes. It takes a few seconds to do something that can make such a big difference in a person's life. I mean, seeing some of the people since, I've been doing this since January, and seeing people in the comments saying, I came here, or they didn't even know how they found this show or how it fell in their lap, was kind of like some of them have used the term divine, how it even came to them. And the message that they saw when they came to the show helped change their frame of mind for the day. And like, oh my gosh, I really needed this in my life right now. And I'm just like, gosh, that's so amazing. And if we can do that here, and it doesn't even matter how many people are on it, Dawn says this all the time, it's evergreen, and that it can be replayed over and over again. But pay that forward. And I think we do that a lot, doing call to action. And they're always simple things that will take hardly any of your time. But I also feel they pay us back in so many different ways that we didn't even expect. Because that one thing, when you do hear back from that friend or that family member that you reached out to and just said, hey, I saw this quote and it made me think of you. Hope you're having a great day. I mean, what, 20 seconds? And that later, if you hear from them and they're like, man, you have no idea how down I was that day and how much I needed that. Like that really changed me. What that gives back to you, to me, is tenfold. I mean, even it's priceless to what those 20 seconds that it took to do it. And I don't know, we all have the ability to make such big differences in such small ways. And that goes to the whole thing of, hey, don't don't try at the beginning of the year to say, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. How many are you going now? 0. Well, then no, you're not going to go 5 days a week. And that's the same thing. You can't fix or change everything to be the way that you want it to. Just take it little baby steps and do small things. But how it does come back to you, and then how it almost like it feeds. At least that's how it is with me. Like it's like a nonstop thing. So then you can't help it. I mean, I go out everywhere and I'm like Dawn. I mean, I'm always saying hi to strangers and smiling and doing those. And when they do it back, you want to do it more. I mean, it's kind of this like, it's feeding that positivity and that light. I mean, it does help us shine more and sharing that sunshine, if you will, with others. And so what do you think, Dawn?
Well, I think that this is making a huge difference. And, a subject we had about a week and a half ago was give to get.
Yeah.
Most people interpret that as I give it and maybe one day I get it. But the giving is the getting in itself when you do it, because you're hearing what you're sharing. You're seeing what impact it does on the person that's in front of you. You can look in their eyes. And that's the thing about LinkedIn Live is if a minute and a half for 2 grandkids will change their perspective. That's why I always did it at 7 a.m, right? It would be the first thing they woke up to, and maybe by thinking of some aspirational or inspirational saying that's been around forever, and it continues to be around forever because people like myself and Charles and Kelle keep sharing it, right? And rising up is also about staying up. It's not rising up and then sitting down. It's rising up and start climbing. And I love people. I love all people. When I used to go to really nice places, at the end of the evening before I go to bed, I'd find a place where everybody would come and go. It could be just a nice couch in a nice hotel or something. And I'd get a coffee or something, just sit there for an hour and watch people come and go, what they were wearing, what they, just looking at them. And when I look at this show, I know everybody has people that love them so much and they don't communicate with, right? There's so many people. It's funny, when you're home, you're around people, you take it for granted. When you're away, you forget sometimes about those people who haven't forgotten about you, especially the older people who really depend on people to show them a little bit what's going on in the outside world, right? Or who are fans of you, aunts and uncles who saw you grow up, right? And would like to know how you're doing today, how you feeling today, and you don't, you can gather that fan club together, So what's your thoughts, Charles?
Yeah, I think that's the opportunity to touch people. We started off when Kelle was referencing human connection, and I think the opportunity to touch people is abundant, and our ability to spark that fire in our hearts is always accessible to us in many, many different ways, in multitudes. And the question is whether or not we're willing to enable it and charge forward to touch other people. And I remember many, many years ago, I trained and was doing marathons and half marathons. Now I just do middle distance. But I remember when I was training, we would be going out for these long, long runs in the morning with my running mates. And we started this game with ourselves when we were running around Stanley Park in Vancouver. We started this game with ourselves that every single person we met, we would say hello to and good morning to as we ran past them. No matter what it was, no matter who it was, no matter how we felt, if we were at the beginning of the run, the middle or the end of the run, and we're really tired and our legs were aching, we made a point of saying good morning and saying hello to every single person. And we did that not only to touch their world, but also to get out of our dark heads, right? To get out of the lactic acid that was swimming in our brains, not only just in our muscles, but the lactic acid that was swimming in our brains. And I think that that's just, an important thing to remember is that growth, we grow through what we go through. And, every wound has an experience, and from that hurt, light will enter the world. And that's really one of the ways that you can look at difficult circumstances, stress, failure in your life, is that through those hurts, light will enter the world. And that's the light that you can pour onto other people. And if other people are experiencing hurt in their world or experiencing a downtime in their world, then you can reach into their world and you can pull the light out of them. That's the possibility that's available to us. And that is rising up.
Absolutely. Kelly?
Oh, amen. I mean, amen. And I feel like there's, knowing that people, when you've gone through things yourself too, and when you say you grow through what you go through, which is, I mean, and because there's such a difference, just because we've been through a bad situation, trauma, however you want to label it, doesn't mean you've grown through it, because it doesn't mean you've healed from it or gone through it. You can get stuck in it. And I think once we've been someone who has gone through something and grown through it, there's some kind of compassion and empathy. I mean, I feel I've always been that way since I was born, but going through tragedy definitely exemplified the compassion and empathy for others, and understanding the pain and how people, the ones who usually act out the most are the ones that have the most pain. And when I say act out the most, I mean act out in a negative manner, are the ones that hurt the most. And having empathy and compassion for others, and not judging. We don't know what anyone's been through. And I think of that all the time on small things too, in the sense of when driving out to my mom and stepdad's on Friday, traffic was horrendous. And, I just turned on my K-Love and I was happy as a clam, because I know I'm supposed to be in that space at the time. And it's like, yeah, it took me, 2 times as long as it normally takes to get here, but I got here, and that's all that matters. But when I see somebody like speed or cut me off, do something, and granted, I still don't love it all the time, but I remind myself, I don't know what's going on with that person. Maybe they've just lost a loved one and they're getting home. Maybe their wife's having a baby. Maybe they're, something happened with their child and they've got to get to them. You don't know what's going on with them. We make the situation about how we feel. We're irritated, and so we act out, but you have no idea. But I think when you turn it and look at it in a way of, I don't know what they're doing here, or if ever I've been stuck in an accident. I think this was something my mom told me years ago. Look at it as it's God's way of holding you back from something. You're supposed to be sitting there. You're being protected from something. And just that mind shift in things, it just creates so much more peace for ourselves. And even to go back to kind of a traffic analogy, I'm one of those people. I get into a lane and I pretty much stay in it. I mean, depending on what's happening. But when you're in traffic, and I'm talking bumper to bumper where you're barely moving, the person that always does like the lane shifting and they're all over the place, but they're not going any farther than you. I haven't changed a lane one time. I've stayed, and this car is still only like maybe a car length or 2 ahead of you, but they keep changing lanes all over. I just think, wow, that's kind of like an analogy to life. Is how do you want to choose to stay in a lane and be peaceful? And I don't mean being open or, so I can't even think of the word I'm trying to say right now. But the person that's all over the place, they're all over the place in the world. Like figure out where you want to be, find peace. You're creating your own chaos by going all over the place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I want to add something onto that. Sorry, Dawn, I'm jumping in here because I want to add something onto that, Kelly. And since it's Easter Sunday, I'm going to swing the bat here and take a risk. And so I just acknowledge that maybe not everyone listening to this is a believer or a Christian, but I want to just add something, Kelly, because one of the ways that I am a Christian, and one of the ways that I transform my perspective is when I'm in those moments that I'm driving and someone cuts me off and I'm really frustrated and I'm really angry. And I have this little muscle inside my head that says to me, don't forget, Charles, Christ died for that person too. And that will like really stop me in my tracks because I don't know what that person's going through. And that person has their own world and their own circumstances. And it's just one of the many tricks that we can use to transform our perspective on things. Back to you,
I love
Don.
Yeah,
that just exemplified what I was saying. Like that to me is like mic drop moment.
well, I think that, or I believe that when you celebrate everybody
Yeah.
for being somebody,
Mhm.
right? And you promote people to believe what they want to believe that gives them the most peace and harmony, right? And that really shares the direction of collaboration, cooperation, community versus competition, who's better, who's worse. And if you want to be the better person, give credit to the other person for what you don't know yet about them or why they do what they do, because at the end of the day, they're sorrowful at this time,
Mhm.
right? If somebody does something disrespectful or injures somebody, they're the ones who had something going on in order for them to take action. And they're going to have to remember that action, and they're not going to be happy with themselves. Now, that may not be something everybody takes into consideration, but I think, there's a saying, pay yourself first. You have to ask yourself is what reaction is going to serve you best. Forget about the other person, right? And if getting into an argument and getting frustrated makes you angry and feel bad for the rest of the afternoon, is that a price you want to pay for something you will not impact? Where, well, like we talked before, if you can give a simple word to a person who hasn't heard a simple word in a while, so no one's approach. And when someone says good morning to me first, I feel bad. I didn't get there first. And it does make me think, what was I thinking about? I just saw a person and I was listening to an audio or something like that. And the audio will be there forever. And I tell my grandkids, because it happens, everybody's got screens. And I said, that show will be there forever. I won't. This is our time. If I come over for an hour or two, let's get a game. Let's take a walk. Let's throw a ball. And actually with my grandson, it was actually 8 o'clock at night. It was almost dark here. And we were playing, because he just started his soccer season. We were outside playing soccer for like an hour and a half, and he loved it, and he couldn't get enough of it. But, that's the thing, is change is where rising up begins, but it should never end. And you should bring as many people with you, because that saying, it's lonely at the top, is truly true. The last thing you want to do is get everything you want and you're the only one there to celebrate it, especially if there were so many people who helped you get there, right? Wouldn't they want to participate? And what victory is it? So like I say, you can't take anything with you, but you can leave a lot behind you. And I think that's so important. And, I know my grandkids, with the quotes I sent them, they got 400 hours of video. I just wish my parents or my grandparents would have left me 400 hours of them being spontaneous and interesting and all that. I could binge that forever and then share that. And that's what we're actually doing. And we're going to be affecting other people's grandkids where they couldn't or wouldn't, so we could bypass a lot of the blockages, open up a lot of doors for people. That's the beauty of it, is the audience, the community. Because if we take our lives back, if we look after each other, if we protect each other, how much better of a world will it be that laws don't have any meaning to any of that, right? Boundaries, leaders, and eventually leaders hopefully come from the people who are spreading this message and achieving this message, and take the place of other leaders who are competitive, antagonistic, And I believe that is going to happen. And the communications that we're using and the way we're using it. And this program is important, not for what it is, but for maybe giving other people ideas to have these programs. I know Charles is doing one with JD, Tuesday at 7:30 my time, I guess 9:30 Eastern time. And I advocate everybody go visit. This weekend I looked at as many LinkedIn Lives as I could, right? Because you don't know where you are until you know where everybody else is. You don't want to live or act in a vacuum. I'm not saying this to say this. There are so many disrespectful shows. There was there was one where a guy was making like he was a DJ and playing music and it was so ridiculous. And he wasn't even a DJ, it just, and then there are other people who are like sharing the only truth they know to everybody they don't know, and wondering why it doesn't catch. And I think until you get real in real time with real people on a consistent basis, here's another thing. Guys like JD I met 3 years ago, they're seeing the show. They want to be on it. They want to be around it. People I'm meeting this week from the show, I met a lady and she's young, probably younger than Paul. And she's got a great story. She's an artist, but she's shy. And she even said the first 3 LinkedIn Lives she did by herself didn't put the video on. She just talked because she was afraid to be seen, And I said, well, we've been talking an hour on Zoom. I haven't seen shyness at all, right? And I said, LinkedIn Lives are just what we're doing here. We could have had a LinkedIn Live and have been perfect. It's just a conversation. And if you can meet people where they are, with what they need, with what you have more than enough to share. If I had 100 grandkids, I could come up with 100 quotes a day, no problem, right? And it's just finding that time for somebody else that you need to schedule, right? You need to say, if I'm going to do this for my grandkids, it's going to be every day until they decide they've had enough. But I got 45 days in and I got one in return. And that to me is a huge win. I know we got to lock it up pretty soon, but Kelly, we're getting so many quality comments. Christy, it's allowing yourself to be strategic, emotional intelligence. Don't react as you have no idea what is in their life. What I think Charles and Kelly and myself are saying, there's so many different perspectives you can adopt, so many different facets of something you can focus on that brings value, that starts with goodness and gets better. Versus, what most people go through is blame, shame, embarrassment. What are going to people think? When you're happy, people get happy for you and with you. So your goal is to be as positive as you can in as many circumstances. And, there's a filter, just like on national broadcast when they're afraid of someone saying something that they don't want to be broadcast, they wait 5 seconds, right? A 5-second delay. And then they can catch things. Well, sometimes, and most times, like we say, respond instead of react. Take a breath for 5 seconds before you throw something out that you'll never be able to take back, and you really didn't mean the way you gave it, right? And you'd be surprised. And sometimes just take another day. Just say, this is something I never thought I'd hear today from you. I've got to be able to better appreciate and understand this before I can respond to it. Right? Put it in the perspective you're having and share it in a way that is acceptable to others. Even like I mentioned, if someone says, I disagree, right there, that set the gauntlet, right? Which it says, what you said, I don't believe, is in essence the right thing, versus I hear what you're saying and here's how I look at it, right? Or here's how I would add to that. Because everybody rises together as everybody is together. So, final thoughts, Kelly?
Well, I just had, as you were saying that about when somebody says, I disagree, I feel like so many things have changed into a way of when somebody says you disagree, now there's a right side and a wrong side. And it's like, no, there's not. I like when somebody says I disagree with that, I'm like, I totally respect that. I'm curious for your perspective. Like, how did you come to that conclusion? Like, I'm interested in other people's thought processes. Truly, that's been my entire life. Um, which is why part of, all of this now, they're just conversations. Understand where somebody else is coming from. Don't judge based on your own life experience. You don't know where they're coming from. And having differences of opinion is what makes us beautiful as a community and as human beings together. Is we all are unique and have a different story to tell. And I think it's so close-minded to say, when you hear someone say, I disagree, and to be like, well, I'm not listening to you anymore because you don't agree with me. Surround yourself with people with different points of view. That is part of what makes this community here, I think, so amazing. We've got people from all over the world that come here and have such amazingly different paths that have brought them to this place. And I mean, how amazing is that? Embrace it and love it, every moment of it. And the other part is there's no judgment here. And that's what I love too. I mean, I can't say enough about how much I love it here. I know that, I don't say this just on Easter Sunday, but the power of prayer for me brought me here to begin with, and it's kept me here. And I love every minute of it. And I'm truly blessed and truly honored on any day to be here, but particularly today. So I'm so grateful to you, Dawn, always, for so much of what you do so selflessly for so many others. And Charles, just for being able to share time with you is always a blessing. So thank you, everyone. And as I always end up saying is, please go out and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too. Happy Easter, everyone.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, Kelly. Thank you so much. And here, I disagree. The normal throne reaction there is for people to lock horns and get it, or just position, like you said. Well, you're wrong and I'm right. But one of the expressions I use as well, Kelly, was, okay, you disagree. Well, help me understand your side of the station. Help me understand, why it is that you are not in agreement with me. And the human race really needs the human race to not lock horns. Exhibit A is what's going on in Ukraine, and all over the world we're seeing conflict, and we got to be working alongside each other, not locking horns. And I guess my final words of encouragement would be to, really, what we resist persists. If you're going through a downtime, if you're going through a turbulent ocean, then go through that raging sea and meet the person that experience those down circumstances, does experience failure, and listen to that person. And you don't even have to say anything or do anything. Look into your heart during downtime and prepare to rise yourself up. You will rise yourself up, and you'll get back up, and you'll keep rising like never before. I really, really believe that everyone has that potential. And then after you rise up, what I ask you to do is to turn around and extend your hand out to the people who are going with me. So,
Well, this is just a wonderful show with wonderful people, and without the audience and participation and response, we definitely couldn't do what we're able to do here. And what it also says is, it's not what it is, it's how you see it, right? And if you see this as a continuation to what's better, right? A loss is something that now gives you an opportunity to fill it with a benefit if you can. And if you ever ask yourself, have you ever made a mistake in your life? And the answer is yes. You got to ask yourself, could that ever happen again? Right? And that kind of humbles you, because there's no reason to compete. I think what happens is some people go beyond where they need to go. They could have just stopped it at whatever they said, but then they take that next part and maybe put judgment to it. But everything has an opposite, and what's bad for you, the opposite is typically pretty good for you. Is find yourself doing things you want others to do, model for them. Over time, it will be impactful, but it has to be consistent. And, people have to see it in your eyes and your face, not hear it in their ears. And that's why I think showing is so much better than telling. Practicing kindness, gives you more muscles for kindness, because then it says, how many more can I help? And everybody's somebody, and everybody's related to somebody else. And if one person could get better and help somebody get better, and it just continues to grow, and more programs continue to encourage it, because most people, they're lucky to have a formal education, let alone a spiritual education, let alone access to personal development. I provided personal development tapes for a lot of people who couldn't speak English too well, who I hired, who hadn't been given an opportunity, not because they weren't worth it, but because they just didn't look like a fit. And it was the look of a fit, not the be of a fit. And when I gave somebody a Brian Tracy cassette, and eight of them, they couldn't get enough and they wanted more. And you know what I started doing? I started enrolling them. At that point, they had Audible stores where you could actually go in and rent a cassette tape, and even before it, a CD. And I was asking the owner, I said, is Ollie coming in? Is Sally coming in? Oh yeah, they're coming every week, and they check things in and they check things out. And it was just handing that one tape over and then bringing a membership, and having a community support like that. So with that said, rising up is about, like I said, getting up. And if you can't get up in a nice way, someone will help you up, and you'll be so surprised what the benefit can be. So anyways, I know we've taken up some valuable time, but you've also added a lot of valuable input. I want to thank everybody for spending Easter together, sharing these wonderful thoughts. We'd love to hear how you took action with them and the results, either on the show or reach out to either anybody who's on the show, especially today, and share it with them, because you'll have completed what they started to do for you. In conclusion, we'll finish up with some comments. Isa, let God bless us and be divine light, my friends. Who else is going to say that to anybody today? Right? And now someone said it to 40 people on the show and maybe 4,000 people to come. And that alone is worth something. James, who's an earth guy, I talked to him. He's got some humongous plans. One will prefer to reject anything that is beyond their consciousness. We all have a place in this beautiful mosaic of life that has 11 levels of consciousness. Maximum freedom is necessary to rise our level. Mike, Don, I've gone too far arguing with a couple neighbors. I regret these encounters every day. I've stopped and forgiven them in my own reflection. If they allow me to be in the future, I will ask all of them to accept my regrets and my apologies. Well, that's a road, and once you get on the road and you believe in it, that road will open up to so many wonderful opportunities, because now you're open to it and people see it. It was so interesting. I forget who I was talking to, but all of a sudden things have been changing for them in how people are responding to them. And I said, well, it's because you're growing, you're blossoming. People are seeing that before you do. And that should be, gratifying, and it is. So anyways, I can't thank everybody enough. It's just beautiful to see everybody grow to their highest potential. And let's all rise up. Let's be here next Easter and say, remember last Easter when we all decided to rise up? Let's see how far we can fly, how high we can soar, and how beautiful life can be once you're at an elevated level of peace and comfort for you and others. So with that, I'll end it. Thank you again, Kelle. Thank you again, Charles.
Love it.
Look forward to tomorrow. Tomorrow we have Gretchen. She's always